to win and learn than lose and learn. And they're right. And the Pittsburgh Steelers getting their first win of the season against the Cleveland Browns is huge. But there are very alarming issues with this team. And overall, the group is so good that the longer they push these issues out, the longer they ignore them, the more of a concern everything comes. They need to fix it right now. What's going on, everybody? I'm Noah Strackmine. Thank you for jumping on to Steelers to Go, your daily to-go cup of Pittsburgh Steelers news and analysis. Find us on youtube.com/allsteelerstalk and subscribe anywhere you get your podcast. We are talking about the Pittsburgh Steelers and a very alarming issue that needs to be addressed. Coming into the game, there were very obvious concerns. Kenny Pickett, Matt Canada, the offense. Is the running game ever going to get going? Do they have an answer for Deontay Johnson being out or Cam Hayward being out? And can the defense reach the expectations that they had coming into the season? The offense, I think we were less optimistic about. The defense proved themselves right, but unfortunately for the Pittsburgh Steelers, you cannot win every single game when your defense scores 14 points, which was more than what your offense scored. You will lose almost every single game banking on your defense trying to carry the points total. But that's where the Pittsburgh Steelers are. In this game against the Cleveland Browns, there were still major concerns. Kenny Pickett looked terrible. The offensive line looked just as good, but the running game was very hit or miss. And it kind of seemed like even those big, long runs by Najee Harris shouldn't have gone anywhere, and the ones that should have didn't. Concerning. But George Pickens looked like a stud. Calvin Austin made a really nice catch that you felt really good about, plus his kick return and his punt return abilities, still very much so there. Pat Freiermuth didn't even get a target, and the offense still had weapons, which is, I guess, a good thing. On the defensive side of the ball, TJ Watt and Alex Highsmith are easily the best pass rushing duo in the NFL. And somehow the Pittsburgh Steelers defense remained just as solid, possibly better, obviously better than week one. But if your expectations were very high coming into the season, they might have surpassed them with their performance against the Browns in week two. And the Browns, I mean, they didn't look terrible. Deshaun Watson still doesn't look like he's it, but overall, the Browns didn't look bad. The only people in this game that looked bad were Kenny Pickett and Matt Canada. And it's hit a point where if you're not going to address either one of those, you're just going to admit defeat. And you're just going to admit that this team is going to be mediocre and it's not going to go anywhere and a Super Bowl run isn't realistic and you're still building for the future with a team that is built to win right now. That's the most alarming part of this entire situation. The Pittsburgh Steelers are clearly a team that can go out and win. They've done it. They have the defense. They have the superstars on offense. They have the offensive line. They have the head coach and the special teams. I mean, Presley Harvin was an MVP in this game. There are zero excuses why the Pittsburgh Steelers shouldn't be good, except for their quarterback and their offensive coordinator. And they're not trying to fix either of them. In the fourth quarter of week two at Acrisure Stadium against the Browns, I heard "Fire Matt Canada" chants clearer and louder than any chant I have ever heard watching a Pittsburgh Steelers game. I have covered this team for 5 years, and in 5 years, I have never once heard fans louder, even with the touchdown celebration, louder and more clear of what they are saying, which means everybody is in unison. Everybody in the stadium is in agreement. Everybody in the stadium is screaming at the top of their lungs for the same thing. Fire Matt Canada. But the Pittsburgh Steelers are not going to do it. And once again, they're admitting they're only allowed to be right here when the roster is probably right here. Kenny Pickett is still not very good. And I think the concerns about Kenny Pickett should grow pretty drastically. And at this point, there should be real concerns about whether or not this guy is the future quarterback of the Pittsburgh Steelers. I think right now, my guess is he's not. And he hasn't shown anything that says that he is. And every game that passes becomes more concerning, but I don't think that you really have a backup option right now unless you're going to toss Mitch Trubisky back in there and say, hey, you could go figure it out. You have starting experience. Go for it. But the Steelers aren't going to do that. What they should do, and I'm not saying that anybody should get fired, but if they're going to try to actually fix something, at what point do you actually make a change? Because if you're not willing to give up on your quarterback, and you shouldn't be willing to give up on your quarterback this early, he's a first round pick a year ago who came into a really crappy situation last season, had to work through it, had the entire offseason to prove himself, did prove himself, earned a captain spot. Everything is adding up so that Kenny Pickett can be the guy. You have to give him an opportunity to be the guy. But if you're not going to make any other changes, you're not allowing him to be the guy, and you're kind of just giving up on him and everybody else around him and your Super Bowl window. So if you're going to make a change, you have to make a change at offensive coordinator. You have to see if Kenny Pickett can improve with the new name in the building or with the new guy who's already on the staff calling plays, or Mike Tomlin working himself more into the offense. I have no idea how you go about it, but you have to see if the problem is Matt Canada. Because if it is, there's only one way to find that out: to get rid of him. And if it's not, and it's Kenny Pickett, then yeah, you made a mistake. But at least you know that your quarterback isn't the guy. And your offensive coordinator, from everything he's shown the last 2 years prior, isn't the guy either. So it's not like you're losing a huge name. You're not out there losing an Andy Reid or another Mike Tomlin or a Bill Belichick or a Kyle Shanahan or Mike McDaniels or whoever you want to name. You're losing a Matt Canada who hasn't proven anything in the NFL and who has been criticized left and right and who has almost never had anything positive to say about his play calling skills. Doesn't seem like a huge loss to me. I just feel like right now the Pittsburgh Steelers are in limbo of how high do we want this team to go and how hard are we going to stick to our guns? How tough and stubborn are we going to be with the Steelers way and not changing from what we know or what we do or how we handle business? The Pittsburgh Steelers have handled business the same way their entire career or their entire organization or existence, whatever you want to say. And it's done well for the most part, but it's also left them with pretty heavy dry streaks, and one that they're currently on right now, and one that, I mean, the fans can't be more clear you are losing them because of. Pittsburgh Steelers fans are going to hang out forever, but they're not going to be happy. From the start to finish of this game, they booed the offense. You don't think that's going to get worse? You don't think they're going to get more agitated and care less and less the more the Pittsburgh Steelers struggle? You don't think that they're going to give up on Kenny Pickett? And that is the worst case scenario. You can give up on Matt Canada. Steelers fans cannot like your play caller. That's totally fine. But when they give up on your quarterback before your quarterback has a real shot, before your quarterback's done developing, before we have a real opportunity to see if he's the guy or not, and I don't necessarily know if he is, and I wouldn't be very optimistic in the sense that I believe he is. But before he gets anywhere close to that, before you give him a shot with somebody else or, even just a elongated opportunity, you're going to lose the fans because they're not going to trust Kenny Pickett because Matt Canada is going to ruin him. And I don't know if that's the case. I don't know if Matt Canada is ruining Kenny Pickett or if Kenny Pickett just isn't that good and isn't meant to be an NFL quarterback and isn't going to make it as a starter for the Pittsburgh Steelers. I don't know. But I think sitting around is the absolute worst idea you could possibly have and is really showing no positives. I don't see a way out of this where you just remain still and things work out in your favor. That just doesn't work out. And when your defense is able to do what it's done, even without some superstars, even while you lost Minkah Fitzpatrick in this game, you already were without Cam Hayward. Even when you have a guy like George Pickens on offense and Najee Harris making plays and Jaylen Warren looking like an Austin Eckler out there or a Ray Rice out there or any running back stud that you could come up with, all the pieces to the puzzle are there. We've talked about the hype. We've talked about the reasons to believe in the Pittsburgh Steelers. None of those went away. They all just got greater. But if you're just going to stay here and you're not going to make any moves or adjustments to try and win, you're really just giving up. And that's kind of where the Pittsburgh Steelers are right now. Are they ready to give up, or are they ready to fight and try to fix things? That's going to determine how good this team is, and really a big part in this franchise's history or current history about whether or not they continue to grow and utilize a team that probably could be the next Super Bowl team for the Pittsburgh Steelers, or if they blow an opportunity because they're stuck in their own ways.